What's good? It's Trayvon. Today we're talking about some of my favorite external plugins for PVM and general utility that you might not be using. As someone who likes to play with the sound on, there's certain sounds that are unbearable, like the Armadillo crossbow sound or the nail beasts. With the plugin Annoyance Mute, you can choose exactly what sounds you'd like to mute. You can go as broad as skilling sounds like the basic woodcutting sound to super specific sounds like the two I just mentioned. Want the ability to search through your bank from anywhere? The Bank Memory plugin allows you to do just that. The plugin remembers what's in your bank, and as your bank changes, the plugin will automatically update, allowing you to use a menu to search through it from anywhere. There's even an option to have the plugin show tooltips when you hover over items, instantly giving you a count of how much of that item you currently have banked. A plugin absolutely essential for skilling is Banked Experience. On the small chance that you don't have it, it's pretty self-explanatory. The plugin uses your banked resources to tell you how much banked experience you have. If you're also a clue enjoyer, then you're going to want to get the Clue Juggling Timer plugin and the Emote Clue Items plugin. Clue Juggling Timer just shows you a timer when you drop a clue, so you'll know exactly when it despawns. Emote Clue Items lets you see which items are used for clues that you pick up or have put in your bank. This way, you won't have to keep going to the wiki to check if any of the random items you've picked up happens to be a clue item. Sneaking in another clue plugin is Watson Clue Tracker. This plugin will show you which clues Watson still needs in exchange for when you're trying to get master clues from him. Custom Menu Swaps is similar to Menu Entry Swapper, except it's even more powerful. Custom Menu Swaps lets you create menu swaps using text. This means that you'll be able to swap things that not even Menu Entry Swapper will allow you to swap. You can also use it to hide certain menu entries or reorder ground items. Resource Tracker is kind of a hidden gem. I wish I could have had it for sailing prep instead of using spreadsheets. This plugin allows you to track your progress towards specific item goals, and the plugin automatically updates the current amount of each tracked item based on what's currently in your bank. Resource Packs, on the other hand, let you personalize your entire interface. You can create your own resource pack or use one of the many that other people have created. Easy Teleports replaces the difficult to remember teleport name slop with names that makes it clear where you're going. This is huge for things like the Pharaoh's Scepter or any item that has teleport names that aren't obvious. A plugin that makes inventory management feel a little better is Instant Inventory. It will predict what your inventory will look like when interacting with items. Most changes in your inventory apply on the next tick, as with most actions in the game. Instant Inventory will cause them to render in your inventory, giving visual feedback before they actually apply, making everything feel more responsive. There are times when I think the animations of certain weapons are just underwhelming, especially for something like the Nox Halberd. To change this, I use the Weapon and Gear Animation Replacer plugin. Now the Nox Halberd feels like a green scythe, which I think is pretty fitting. Potion Storage Bars. This plugin adds bars below your potions, making it easier to visualize exactly how many doses you have left. Potion Storage Customizer allows you to change the position of your potions in each of their sections. It also removes the auto sorting when adding a potion or when removing a potion from your favorites, so your customizations won't get messed up. Anytime you're going to be in the wilderness, then Wilderness Player Alarm is going to be your best friend. This plugin will alarm you and make your screen flash whenever there is a player near you. Click to Minimize has been a godsend while I'm editing videos. You can set specific actions to automatically minimize the screen for you. It's useful anywhere that you can AFK. Watchdog allows you to create custom alerts for pretty much anything in the game. Out of laziness, I still use my alert for the crystal extractor to this day. Tools Required is a plugin that helps you remember to bring tools with you. If you don't have the right tool in your inventory for certain skilling activities like woodcutting and mining, then you won't have an option to chop trees or mine ore. As Ironman, there is going to be a time in your life when you're going to be world hopping trying to buy items in a shop. To make world hopping a lot less tedious, you might want to get the default tab plugin. This plugin lets you set a default user interface tab when switching worlds, so if you're constantly world hopping to buy rune packs, you won't have to keep switching over to your inventory tab to open the packs on each world hop. You ever been doing a birdhouse run and you accidentally use your seeds on another player that's right next to the birdhouse you're trying to use? If you download the plugin No Use Player, this is something you'll no longer have to worry about. This plugin removes all menus using an item on another player. In some cases, this can actually be a bad thing, which is why the plugin also includes items you're able to whitelist. To end this section, we have possibly the most useful plugin for all kinds of utility. If you haven't heard of it by now, you might as well just uninstall the game. The plugin I'm talking about is Door Kicker. Its usage is in the name. Whenever you open a door in the game, your character will kick it open, asserting dominance. Starting off this section with one of the more common PVM external plugins, we have Better NPC Highlight. On the rare chance you might not have it, it gives you over 9 different ways of highlighting NPCs using their names or IDs. You can highlight their true tiles, hull, outline, and clickbox to name a few options. With the plugin boss health indicators, you no longer have to remember at what percentages a certain boss phases. All you have to do is put the boss's name into the menu and create a new marker at whichever percentage you'd like. When doing any action in the game, there is a server-side delay between the time you make a click and the sound of your action. Sometimes the delay can be too long and you won't even notice that you've misclicked. The plugin Click Confirm instantly plays a client-side click sound. When you do things like equipping items, creating instant confirmation that you didn't misclick. This next plugin I've actually been asked a lot about. If you're like me and you still aren't able to internalize the timings of ticks in the game, then you might want to use Visual Metronome. All this plugin does is give you an overlay that changes every tick. You can change what type of overlays you have, from a colored square on your screen to actual numbers above your character's head. Honestly, without this plugin, soloing Ulm and Cox would just be impossible for me. Speaking of Cox, there's a few external plugins you might want to use here. Cox Thieving helps you with keeping track of the total grubs in the thieving room and finding chests with bats. Cox Timers helps you track room times and parts of rooms like the ice demon thawing. And Cox Vanguards adds highlights to each of the vanguards and HP indicators so you don't accidentally do too much damage to one. If you ever find all the different delays confusing when consuming different foods and potions, then you might want consumable cooldowns. It adds cooldown indicators for all of the consumables in your inventory, so you'll know exactly when you're good to start eating or chugging brews again. If you've done fight caves before, you probably have or have used the Fight Cave Waves plugin. What you might not have used is Fight Cave Helper. Fight Cave Helper is what you can use to predict and literally display images of where each monster will spawn for each wave. If you're thinking of going for a quiver at any point, you're obviously going to want to use the Fortis Coliseum plugin. This is going to give you things like an overlay to show the current and or next wave, or an overlay to show you your current modifiers you have active. If you're doing the gauntlet, you're probably already using the plugin literally known as the Gauntlet, but what you might not be using is the Gauntlet Chest pop-up plugin and the Gauntlet Minimap plugin. Gauntlet Chest pop-up makes the Gauntlet Chest behave like the Barrows Chest whenever you loot it, and the Gauntlet Minimap plugin lets you see resources and demi-bosses on your minimap. Ground Item Sounds lets you play specific sounds whenever you get a drop based on a certain value, as shown here. This is sometimes a double-edged sword because whenever you get a super valuable drop, you might get jump scared. You're probably using the default tile indicators plugin, so in addition to that, You might want to get improved tile indicators. This plugin just gives you additional options to use for tile indicators. Some of those options being letting the overlay draw behind your character, or even being able to change the style of the destination tile. You're going to want the Hub Party Panel plugin if you ever plan to do PVM with a team. This plugin just helps everyone stay on the same page because it allows you to see the inventory, equipment, active prayers, and stats of the other people in your party who are also using the plugin. Item charges improved, builds on the default item charges plugin, and just adds charges to missing jewelry and weapons and armor that the original plugin happens to be missing. Konar Milestone Reminder reminds you to use Konar for more points at milestone Slayer task numbers, like the 50th, 100th, 250th, and 1000th milestones. You can even have it highlight Slayer Masters in red as an additional way to remind you to use Konar. When you're dealing with stacks of monsters, you're going to want the plugin Monster Menu HP. All it does is shows the hit points of monsters in their right-click menu entry. So when you're barraging during Slayer, you'll know exactly which one to click. Want to avoid accidentally emptying potions? You should get the plugin Not Empty. It'll remove the empty option on your potions. Ever wanted to know the max hit of a monster at a glance? The plugin NPC Max Hit does exactly that. It'll show you a monster's max hit on mouse over. If you're a game designer designing a boss fight, the visual information that you give a player is incredibly important. Sometimes a boss fight might even have good visual clarity for one group of players, and another group might think certain mechanics are difficult to see or differentiate from each other. Projectile Override helps with this. It allows you to replace boss projectiles with alternatives that are easier to distinguish in color, shape, or contrast. If you're like me and blind as hell, this plugin is a godsend for reducing ambiguity in high-pressure PVM encounters. Personally, my favorite projectiles to use as replacements has got to be Leviathans because they're gigantic and easily distinguishable. Another plugin to help with visual clarity is radius markers. This allows you to see things like the attack range and interaction range of monsters, and color the radius to whatever you'd like. Why is this useful? This plugin is specifically useful for bosses that change forms. When bosses change forms, they change their NPC ID. By knowing their ID and using this plugin, you can instantly tell which form a boss is in. Where each form looks so similar, it can be hard to differentiate between each one. I like to color their attack radii markers, be red in their melee forms, blue in their magic forms, and green for range. Since raid drops are based on the amount of points that you have, you're going to want a way to keep track of all of the points that you've gotten. As someone who is a data enjoyer, I recommend getting the Raids Data Tracker plugin. This plugin logs the drops you've gotten, the total purple splits, as well as the number of points you've gotten for every raid. Recently, Slayer had some changes where you're able to view the task list that a Slayer Master has and block them without having to be assigned the task. For some reason, Jagex didn't think about letting us sort the tasks in descending or ascending order based on task weighting, which is exactly why you're going to want to install Slayer Task Sorter. Jagex recently allowed us to pick names for our rune pouch loadouts. Sadly, the update was kind of scuffed, and there weren't many names, not to mention the UI design was badly done. Rune pouch loadouts fixes these issues. This plugin changes the rune pouch loadout design, letting you type custom loadout names and also change the icon for each loadout. During bossing, it can be annoying having to remember to upkeep certain spells, thralls being one of the biggest culprits. To give you a reminder to summon thralls, people used to use the Thrall Reminder plugin. This plugin has since been changed to the Spell Reminder plugin. Not only can you use it to remind you to summon thralls, but you can use it for Death Charge, Mark of Darkness, and more. As you get more experienced with Slayer, there's going to come a time when you realize that keeping your task streak is a mistake, when you could just save time and use Turael to skip the tasks you don't want. Turael skipping is a plugin that will help you complete Turael and Aya tasks even faster. Some of its features are showing you a world map icon, showing you the location of the Slayer task on the world map, as well as a task information box that shows you teleport options to get you to the best areas for completing the tasks. Attack Timer Metronome might be what you want to use if you've come from other MMOs and are used to seeing cooldowns letting you know exactly when you are able to attack again. This plugin can be great at helping you avoid missing ticks when attacking, because missing ticks can be a huge DPS loss depending on the weapon you're using. Arceus Timers upgrades the visuals of certain spells in the Arceus spellbook. One of the biggest visual upgrades being the thralls. Without the plugin, each thrall has the same exact info box icon, but using the plugin, each thrall is differentiated with its own icon, reminding you which one you last summoned. When raiding with randoms, there's going to be a chance that they don't split drops or they just try to scam you. The Runewatch plugin gives you the option to investigate players. Investigate checks if they've ever been reported to Runewatch's database. Runewatch is a website that publishes reports in which players who have committed scams have not split loot when they were supposed to, or have not returned items that they borrowed. I don't know about you guys, but I would not want to raid with someone who was reported to have not split something like a twisted bow. And finally, the most essential plugin for PVM, allow me to introduce Spec Dialogue. Honestly, this plugin is fantastic. All it does is add customizable overhead dialogue for any special attack. Trust me, after downloading this, you'll be 100% wondering how you ever lived without it. And those are all my favorite useful external plugins. Hopefully there were some that you didn't already have. And remember to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.